The news from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
A very good day to you with the news at this time. I am Tiana Jordan. To begin the news, here's a look at the leads. The Caribbean's two major mobile telecoms providers are to examine how WhatsApp and similar services can be taxed. Operation Recovery is underway to get primary school students back in the classrooms. In regional news, Suriname's soldiers have been sent to a senior citizens' home where workers have gone on strike. In Trinidad, 3 persons have been shot dead. And for the international news, we'll bring to you the latest bulletin coming from the BBC World Service. The details of these and other stories will be coming up right here in just a moment.
News Talk Radio Guyana is the station for you, bringing you news updates every hour, major news 3 times a day, edutainment on a higher level, shows like Beat the Clock, Brunch on the Coast, The Afternoon Jam, Youth's Perspective. It's a station that goes wherever you go, streaming online at www.bit.ly/newstalk1031. It's News Talk Radio Guyana, 103.1 FM.
And now the news in detail. The Caribbean community, CARICOM, and the region's 2 major mobile phone companies have agreed to examine taxing over-the-top OTT services like WhatsApp and similar services. Digicel says it agreed with Cable and Wireless and the CARICOM to share professional studies concerning the taxation of OTTs. They also agreed to discuss the potential regulatory framework for CARICOM telecom service providers. Other OTT services include Telegram, Skype, Signal, and Teams. These services are used free of cost as part of subscribers' data plans, something telecommunication companies say have been robbing them of much-needed revenue. The Guyana government and the People's National Congress Reform, PNCR, on Thursday united in condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In condemning the violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity by Russia, the Guyana government is calling for the immediate cessation of military action. The Irfan Ali-led administration says it is consulting its international partners, and the PNCR, the major party in the opposition coalition, a Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, also called for the withdrawal of troops. The PNCR says Russia's invasion of Ukraine amounts to a violation of its territorial integrity and the principle of the sanctity of contracts and that of internationally recognized borders. Guyana has unresolved border claims with neighboring Venezuela and Suriname. The PNCR notes the Russia-Ukraine conflict, noted that even at this juncture, there is room for diplomatic efforts by powerful nations and multilateral organizations to end the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. With oil prices soaring above $100 per barrel for the first time in 7 years, the PNCR noted that Guyana could not afford to ignore that conflict in Europe. This is because it has grave implications for the peaceful development and for the geopolitics of Europe, the rest of the world, more particularly the negative consequences for world economy. The Ministry of Education says it has launched Operation Recovery within the 11 education districts to get back students into the classroom now that the COVID pandemic appears to be waning. The Education Ministry says the aim is to find primary school students who have continuously absent from school since school restarted. Operation Recovery, according to the Education Ministry, is also targeting those who have missed the recent National Grade 6 assessment NGSA mock examination. Latest official figures show that 1,300 grade 6 children were absent from the grade 6 mock exam. This move will see education officers from central ministry and within the education districts, along with regional officials and community activists, fanning out into communities to locate these pupils. The exercise aims to ascertain the location of the students and the reasons behind their absenteeism so that the Ministry of Education can assist these students to return to school. The scientific data gathered from countries around the world in numerous studies by varying organizations continue to show that the long school closures resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic will lead to an increased rate of school dropouts and tremendous learning loss unless countries take urgent, practical measures to mitigate against this. The number of persons in a COVID-19 intensive care unit has dropped to 7. Overall, the Health Ministry says there are 52 persons in hospital. The statistics also show that the number of persons who have been ordered to isolate themselves at home has dropped to less than 1,000. In fact, there are now 712 persons who have been asked to stay at home. 6 others have been quarantined to see if they will develop symptoms of the viral disease. Based on the latest test within the past 24 hours, the Ministry of Health says there are 19 new cases. Since the first case was recorded here in March 2020, 62,798 cases have been recorded and 60,811 have recovered. An 18-year-old man died on Thursday after the car he was driving slammed into the Demerara Distillers Limited DDL fence Diamond East Bank, Demerara. Dead is Prakash Salvador of 1316 Section C Block Y, Golden Grove East Bank, Demerara. Police say the incident occurred at about 8:15 a.m. Police say the car was being driven at a fast rate of speed when Salvador lost control of the vehicle and it struck the fence. Salvador was removed from the wreck in an unconscious condition and taken to the Diamond Diagnostic Center, where he died while receiving medical attention. And now in regional news. Suriname's soldiers have been deployed to a senior citizens' home where workers have gone on strike. Star News reports that the Ministry of Defense has sent military personnel to support the senior citizens' home named Huawei's Ashiniana. The soldiers have been deployed to assist the home in the kitchen, medical and security areas. Defense Minister Krishna Mathura says the vulnerable group of senior citizens cannot be abandoned. She hopes that the industrial unrest at the senior citizens' home will end soon and that the soldiers will be withdrawn. The retirement home offers housing, nursing, and care to senior citizens from 60 years of age and older who can no longer function independently due to social, medical, or nursing reasons and who do not have the opportunity to do so elsewhere. In Trinidad, 2 bandits and a woman were shot dead Thursday morning after the criminals invaded a home. More details from TTT News Online.
3 persons are dead following a home invasion in West Moorings. TTT News understands that sometime after 8:30, 2 intruders attempted to break into a house located at Cherry Crescent. Upon entry, a woman was shot and killed by one of the assailants. A relative who possesses a licensed firearm confronted the intruders and a shootout ensued. During the shootout, the 2 intruders were killed and a woman who lived at the home. The woman was taken to the St. James Medical Center but succumbed to injuries. Up until news time, police are said to be on the scene conducting inquiries.
That report from TTT News Online. And now in Antigua, there has been a spate of break-and-enter and larceny at schools. Here's the latest coming from ABS Radio.
The COVID-19 pandemic has caused much disruption to schools over the past few years. But now, education officials say recent school break-ins and vandalism are compounding learning challenges. The Clay Hall Secondary School is one of the institutions the perpetrators have targeted in the string of break-ins. I spoke with Principal Ashwood Azil, who tells me it has impacted the school in more ways than one.
Over the last 3.5 weeks, we've experienced three break-ins which really have resulted in tremendous loss to the school, both in terms of material resources, in terms of lost learning time and so forth.
He says the vandals have taken computers, projectors and other vital teaching tools. Azil represented principals at a stakeholder meeting this week discussing ways to address the issue. He says Otter's Comprehensive School has also come under attack from vandals.
Where you had human excrement being left, in classrooms and so forth. That certainly is barbaric and by any measure reeks of just pure callous disregard for the value of education.
He says these incidents further retard learning for students already faced with challenges from the pandemic.
That every time a school has to stop for a half a day, to clean, sanitize, restore their classrooms to an operational state, restore their staff rooms and administrative areas to an operational state. Those are hours that we're taking away from students learning.
This week's meeting included Education Ministry officials, teacher union members, and representatives from Public Works, the division which handles school security.
We are looking for some concrete plans, and they have committed to ensuring that there is some concrete plans in place that can be communicated to us by the end of this week.
Public Works Head of Security Robert Martin says they are considering several interventions, including electronic monitoring and improved lighting at school plants. Jamie J. O'Shea, ABS News.
And now for the international news, here's the latest bulletin coming from the BBC World Service.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. President Volodymyr Zelensky has called on Ukraine's army to stand firm in the face of the sustained assault from Russian forces, saying they were all the country had. There have been exchanges of fire in northern parts of the capital, Kiev, which has been reached by an advance party of Russian troops. James Waterhouse reports from Kiev.
For the fourth time today, we, along with the rest of the city, have had to make our way to a makeshift bomb shelter. Some choose the metro. For us, it's this underground car park with rows of chairs. There are 4 beds there and plenty of worried expressions. The sounds of shells and missiles exploding in the distance outside have been joined by a faint sound of gunfire as Russian forces close in. When it's quiet, it's silent. The quietest Kiev's been for some time. Its restaurants, cafes and bars are all closed. The mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, says Russia is looking to bring his city to its knees and says enemy saboteurs are already here. The UK government claims the Kremlin didn't achieve the predicted lightning strike it wanted on Kiev after Russian forces suffered 450 deaths. But this military chokehold on Ukraine has caught many by surprise, and it's getting tighter.
President Putin has called on the Ukrainian army to depose its leadership, but the Ukrainian MP, Lesia Vasilenko, said Ukrainians would fight.
Ukraine will not surrender because Ukraine is not Russia and Ukraine is not part of Russia. Ukraine is an independent state and we will keep standing and fighting for our independence. We have given a lot of blood for our children to be able to live in a free and independent Ukraine. And the Ukrainian army will do everything and the Ukrainian people will support it and do everything even more to stop Putin and his army moving into Ukraine.
The Kremlin has meanwhile said it is willing to send a negotiating team to Minsk, the capital of neighbouring Belarus, for talks about what it called the neutral status of Ukraine. Here's Jenny Hill.
As far as Moscow is concerned, the mission is an ongoing success. The authorities here say that Russian forces have disabled 118 Ukrainian military targets and that scores of Ukrainian soldiers have surrendered. No one's quite sure of the endgame here. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said earlier that Moscow was ready to hold talks if Ukrainian forces laid down their weapons. And Vladimir Putin appears undeterred by fresh Western sanctions. His spokesman said today they would cause problems for Moscow, but not insurmountable ones. Russia is expected to impose counter-sanctions and this morning banned British Airlines from landing in the country or using its airspace. Meanwhile, after small anti-war protests across Russia last night, the authorities have warned citizens against further demonstrations.
World News from the BBC. The Chinese President Xi Jinping has spoken with President Putin by phone. Chinese state television says that Mr. Putin told the Chinese leader that Russia was willing to hold talks with Ukraine. Mr. Putin has also received a call from the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, whose political survival has depended to a considerable extent on Russian military and financial support. President Zelensky has urged the European Union to impose tougher sanctions on Russia. He said the pressure on Moscow had to increase. Jessica Parker in Brussels says EU officials say they are preparing a further package.
The EU is considering an asset freeze of Vladimir Putin and his foreign minister Sergei Lavrov. What I'm being told is that it would not include a corresponding travel ban that you often see with these types of restrictions, but I'm told it will be discussed by foreign ministers here in Brussels this afternoon. The EU has not officially confirmed this, but it does come as the EU was facing some criticism, for example, for not pushing moves to try and cut Russia off from the international payment system known as SWIFT. I think some countries were particularly concerned that if you cut Russia off from international payments, maybe Russia will start cutting the EU off from some of its gas supplies. So that has been a consideration. But more broadly, officials here insist that their plan is a strong one, will inflict severe costs on Russia. One official saying today that it will cripple the Kremlin's ability to carry out this war.
European football's governing body UEFA has moved the venue for this year's Champions League final from St. Petersburg to Paris. The governing body of Formula One has cancelled this year's Russian Grand Prix. And all remaining World Cup skiing events have been moved elsewhere after Norway and Sweden said they would not send teams to compete in Russia. BBC News.
And now to end the news, here's a recap of the leads. The Caribbean's two major mobile telecoms providers are to examine how WhatsApp and similar services can be taxed. Operation Recovery is underway to get primary school students back in the classroom. In regional news, Suriname's soldiers have been sent to a senior citizens' home where workers have gone on strike. And in Trinidad, 3 persons have been shot dead. And that's the end of the news.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio Newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/